Hello, I am Paul Ford, and I am the co-founder of Aboard.
And I'm Rich Ciotti, the other co-founder of Aboard.
And Aboard is an AI-powered tool that accelerates software delivery for all kinds of businesses, and we're going to show you all sorts of stuff really soon. But in the meantime, we're having very exciting conversations about what AI means to the world of software. And that's this podcast, Reqless, R-E-Q-L-E-S-S, because who needs requirements anymore? You can just build stuff.
We should explain that more whenever we say it.
I don't know. People are smart and can figure things out from context
That's
clues. True. So look, we have got a very exciting guest today. He has seen so much software get made and is wrapping his head around this whole new world we're in and also helping his company adapt to it. We're going to tell you all about that in a minute. But if you have ever made software yourself, trust me, this person's seen more organizations make more software than you have. So you want to listen to this. Let's play that theme song.
Reqless.
Richard, today on the podcast.
I can't believe Reid Hoffman's here.
Reid hasn't made that much software. He made LinkedIn.
That's true.
Well, LinkedIn is
actually, that's unforgivable what he made.
Oh, my God. All right, pause for a second there, friends. Kurt Schrader.
Welcome.
Good to be here.
There we go. So
we're off to the races.
It's always a moment where you got to tear open the can. Kurt, you are the CEO of Shortcut, shortcut.com. And the reason I was saying you have seen all the code is that Shortcut is a developer platform for people to build software as organizations. I think rather than me giving sort of the summary, could you give us the summary?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Kurt Schrader. I'm the CEO, co-founder at Shortcut, and we build project management software for software and product teams to help them move faster and do less work about work, right? So if you want to capture your requirements, can help you with that all the way down to what's actual work you're going to do and who's getting things done.
So you can throw that part of the product away because AI will do it now. So wait a minute, help the civilians out there in the world understand. Many people, if they're working in development, there are a couple big players in this thing like Jira. Okay, what's different about Shortcut?
So when we started Shortcut, we came off of another company where I was CTO. We used Jira, we used some other tools, and everybody hated them. So step one was, can we build something that people will not hate?
That is real. That is one of the things about Jira that is pretty universal. And God bless us all at Atlassian, but man, people hate Jira.
It's terrible.
I've worked with a lot of engineers, and they just never have much good to say. So anyway, go ahead.
So how do we make the engineers happy? How do we lower that bar? How do we move things faster? Just take a lot of the overhead and bullshit out of what you're doing. And that's where we started. It's been about 10 years now.
Would you say the engineers are happy? I was never able to create that situation for engineers.
Well, I think some of your engineers use Shortcuts. So yeah. I don't know. What do you say? Back in the day. Will engineers ever be happy? Yeah. I don't know.
But that was the happiest they ever were.
We're going to turn down the dial of unhappiness. Let's just say that. Continually turn it in one direction.
I'm gonna stereotype, and you correct me. I mean, it's ticket management, workflows for teams.
Exactly. Yeah, it's tickets.
But
it's
really
tasks.
Nerd oriented. Really like not because it wouldn't just be ticket. It would be sort of like code commit connected to the GitHub.
Yeah. I think we were the first ones who built GitHub integration that let you move stories and tickets around automatically. Like all those different pieces in there. Yeah. So the less you can go in and have to deal with it, the better on some level.
So your hand is on the pulse of a lot of software teams. Right? I mean, you're seeing what's going on out in the world, and obviously...
Well, and give us a sense of the scope of Shortcut. Like, you work with lots of organizations. Like, how would you quantify?
Yeah, we have, thousands of companies use it, right?
And not just for, like, one piece of code. Like, they use it for a lot of their stuff.
Yeah. Once it's in your engineering organization, it usually saturates the entire thing. So... Okay. We have companies of 2 people. We have companies of thousands of people that use it to build things.
Okay, so thousands of engineers, thousands of organizations, so tens of thousands, maybe 100,000, like lots of engineers.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so you have a view into this world.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, the last, I'm going to say 2 years have seen a pretty fascinating shift in terms of tools and capabilities that everybody's pitching in 1,000 different directions. At engineering teams, at engineers individually, et cetera, et cetera. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I mean, and you guys have seen this, I'm sure. There's just a lot of stuff out there, and I think there's an interesting early take, right? When we started this 2 years ago, let's go back 2 years, right? You would get some kind of model.
Started this. We're talking about AI.
Yeah,
coding.
like here, AI is going to help you build things, right?
Yeah.
And
so you get a model.
Yeah, a lot of those early models were very bad at this, right? But they were positioned as, this is amazing. Like, here's this new scene. You're going to replace your engineering team.
That's been the promise.
With a bunch of models.
I mean, let's be clear. We've been trying to do this as an industry for 75 years. Anything. It never, it's so sweet that you tried to make engineers happy, because every other aspect of the economy is desperate to kill all of them as quickly as possible.
Yeah. We've been trying to do it longer than any of us have been alive. And we're all old, so
yeah, this is real.
It's true. The promise has been relentless, even when it was not very good.
But you know what? It's because of the magic trick. It's because when it draws the picture, like a month later, you look at the picture, like, that's some garbage made by AI. But the minute it draws it, you're like, I've never seen a cat with nipples on its head before. That's exciting, right?
Can it do that again?
Exactly.
For us, starting with, hey, what do you want to build? And then breaking it down, we see a lot of teams that are trying to push big tasks or stories like they kind of used to write, right? You can give an unbounded, undefined thing to an engineer and say, hey, build this, right? And
fix
you
the
guys,
API.
Fix the API.
Yeah.
And if you give that to any of the AI tools that I've used so far, which, is probably different today than it was yesterday, so who knows? Just the output on the other end is just trash.
Well, it'll take a swing. Let's actually characterize the trash, because I don't think people listening, if they haven't directly worked with this stuff, really understand what, because everyone's been oversold, right? So when you say it's trash, you're an engineering manager who runs an engineering company as CEO. If an engineer came to you and said, hey boss, here's the code I wrote, but there was, what the AI did, if they threw it over the wall, what would you say to them about that code?
I don't even know if I'd look at more than a few lines of it before pushing it. I mean, it doesn't know how you write code. It doesn't know really what the problem is that it's trying to solve half the time. What we've seen internally and across a lot of our customers, and what we tell people is, hey, if you treat this like a very junior engineer, and if you had a very junior engineer, what would you do? You wouldn't tell them to fix the API. You would say, this function doesn't do the right thing. It's not named correctly. Do the thing, right? So what we're working on is, how do you take this big idea and start to break it down, and then say, okay, we've got 10 things to do. These 3 are obviously human things, right? And then if we had 7 junior engineers, could we give them these 7 things? And would they get 5 of them right? Maybe. That's where we're trying to get to.
You know what it's pretty good at? It's pretty good at dark mode.
Is it? So one of my test prompts is, theme this to give me a Miami Vice theme.
Well, now you've gone too far. Now you've gone too far, because what it does, what I'm finding when you do dark mode, so my dark mode experience is very specific. If you're in an environment and you've carefully architected an AI project, which means it has a component library, like you've kind of made a lot of hard choices about the libraries and the systems you're using, and you say dark mode and it's in that context, it will tend to pick the automatic dark mode tooling that comes with that component library, and it will import kind of all the hard work that got done by somebody else 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And you'll get your dark mode. If you ask it to implement dark mode from first principles, it's chaos, right?
But
fair enough.
Just to zoom out a
it's not
second.
going to pull together a whole theming library.
That's right.
I want to go back to what you said, which is, I got to imagine somebody listening to the podcast that's hearing about all these amazing app building tools and code generation tools.
I'm a product manager and I made a game.
And you're saying they're trash. They were trash 2 years ago. Are they still trash today?
So they are orders of magnitude better, and then they're getting better and better. I did see on Blue Sky or something the other day where someone was like, "Ooh, the video game industry is dead," because someone had made an Atari game with
This is real. Like they make
what are we doing? What are these proclamations?
They make Pong, and then they're like, "Well, that's it for Assassin's Creed." I will say, and just like breaking news, the Ethan Malik newsletter came out. We've talked about him before in the podcast, and he's like, "Look, I'm using ChatGPT 3.7. He got early access." He's like, it's better at coding than ChatGPT 4, right, or whatever. I know the numbers.
Claude
just went back.
3.7. Right?
just
That's
know
the
the
new one.
Claude 3.7 is better. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're continuing to get better.
But maybe model naming is a good example of how bad this stuff is.
Yeah.
There's very little product at these companies. Anyway, so like the new version of the thing.
But is it still a junior engineer?
You're right. Actually, and just to be clear, Kurt, you're totally right. It's Claude 3.7.
Yes.
It's really good. So is it, junior
I think it
engineer?
is. I think you have to think of it as a junior engineer.
Still,
I don't know where that sort of frontier or that line you have to cross to give it something a little less well-defined, right? Like, and we're making, we're making a bet on this, right? Like, how do we boil this
When
stuff down?
you say you mean shortcut.
Shortcut
Yeah.
is building a product. So let's take one step back. We did the thing, first of all, that I think a lot of tools have in it, which is like a button that says, write this with AI, like in the UI.
Yeah.
And we already talked about engineers being unhappy.
Yeah.
An AI button given and put in front of a bunch of engineers went poorly. Let's go with poorly.
Right.
Is that true?
Yeah. They were like,
What are you doing?
Why is this here?
So you push this into the market.
Well, no,
into
we never released it.
This was internal.
It was enough of the feedback, like how do I turn this off on Notion, these sort of things, right? And
I'm not going to ask you to respond to this in any way, but I have to imagine the engineers who go to work at the engineering tooling company are a special kind of engineer, and I celebrate that.
No,
Anyway,
but
keep
did you
going.
see this with other tools? Like, did people have a bit of an uproar and like just sort of rejected it in Notion and Monday and all these guys? Like,
I think
what do you see?
They want to see it separate, and there's another problem for us because we have access to code, we have access to a lot of internal data, and people are like, I don't want my data leaving the bounds at all, right? So how do we?
This is real. Like people, you manage the critical assets for thousands of companies that are. That's what differentiates them from their competitors, et cetera, et cetera. So they're very vulnerable if that data leaks.
Yeah.
Okay, so you backed off of that.
So we threw that in the trash, and that was probably a year and a half ago.
Okay.
But everybody was doing that at that time. So you're like, all right, we got to get in the mix.
Yeah. And, our board said, what are you doing? I said,
Might want to
I
do
don't know. And everybody hated it.
Oh,
and they were like, really? And I was like, yes, everybody hated it.
Let's go there for a second.
Yeah.
Are boards and advisors of startups or young companies asking right out of the gate, what's your AI plan?
You don't even have to say asking, maybe more like shrieking.
Yeah, you guys don't have a board, do you?
Yeah.
No,
It's nice.
we're
Just the two of you?
We're the board, man. No, it's great. It's great for our employees that there's no oversight. It really is good. It's allowed us to iterate in all kinds of ways. Yeah, one day when we ship our product. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it comes up. We've taken a bunch of venture funding over the years. Now, all that said, we're profitable now, so I have a little bit of pushback on all of this stuff. And I said we're working it out. I don't think boards, both of you, have worked with lots of engineers, so you understand why an engineer would be like, don't give me a button to like write a thing because I fucking hate it.
Yeah.
But our board, kind of has ramped up over time. Hey, what are we doing here? We're funding things. What's going on?
We're seeing growth over here.
Yeah.
Why aren't you guys into it? Seems to make a lot of sense. It's not, which honestly, like we like to make fun of anybody who has power over our destiny, but that's not the wackiest thing for a board to say.
Yeah, so we've started to build a thing off to this. I think the key piece for us was treat this like a junior engineer, right? We played with coding agents, things where you can give it a task and it'll do things. And very quickly it was like, this dark mode? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
These small things, the more we can break things down, the more we can get specific about things, the more we can do small edits to, what the thing needs to do, the better. And then as the agents improve, you'll be able to get a little bit further away from that. But we want to start with the big idea and then have a agent, I guess that's the word we're using for everything now, help us break it down smaller and smaller into a bunch of subtasks and then hand them off to people to run with.
So essentially, the currency in Shortcut is the ticket, and the ticket is sort of the most atomic element, and then you've got different ways of grouping them and context and epics and stories and all that. With this tool in flight, you could give it a top level message or mandate, and it will chop it up into tickets and organize them and send them off to teams. Is that the thinking?
Yeah, exactly. You flesh it out into the first set of things you want to build, and then break down.
So it helps it get more atomic, which is always a challenge with tickets, right? Like getting everything into the smallest possible components so that people can just go in there and start checking stuff off.
Yeah. Okay. But there's still a bunch of pieces that are like, these are people pieces, right? Like this piece is not broken down enough. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to break it down anymore. And it's probably not worth it. Like even if I did that, it's still going to get it wrong.
Sure.
When I could just give it to an engineer, they spend their 4 hours on this and change the name of the API endpoint piece, right? Like something else can do that. Nobody wants to do that work anyway.
Yeah. All right. So Kurt, let's come back to the earlier part of the conversation. Everybody in the world is telling me that, you're going to break this stuff down into these little tickets and then we'll just have our agents run around and write all the code. And it sounds like you're telling me, no, I'm going to get to break stuff down in tickets and then humans are going to have to get involved.
Well, there's two pieces there, right? One is humans need to be involved in the breakdown because it's not good enough yet.
There we go.
And
no, this is critical, and I think like we keep saying it, you're saying it. It's nice.
Is it not good enough yet? It just goes a little off the rails.
It's just
sometimes.
it's junior engineer.
It's junior engineer, it's junior product manager, right?
I was going to say it's junior
it's
product manager.
What
Is what we're
do
talking
we got
about
here? Yeah.
Yeah,
And you don't want a junior product. Like it's even worse if you have a junior product manager giving something to a junior engineer. Like that's just gonna what's coming out the other side.
My joke is like, the food's not great, but the portions are huge, right? Like it's just sort of like that's and I think like there is an element of like, it's lots of scrambled eggs is fine, like for breakfast.
Yeah.
But you don't want lots. You just
Not every day.
sometimes you got to get in there and cook a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and you're trying to avoid toppling the tower at some point, right? If you just build out this stuff on top of each other, we've all been in technical debt before, and I was showing you guys earlier some code on a website that's clearly AI generated that instead of a header, it created its own header out of an input tag that you couldn't edit, and it's like this is clearly
Madness.
like no one in the real world would ever do this.
What is the product goal? The product goal is to help teams move a lot faster, to make them smarter. Like what's your goal?
Yeah, it's to help teams move a lot faster and take away all the you call this Reqless, right? Part of the reason people hate requirements documents, at least in our experience, is you're just sitting there for an hour and you got to get the format and the template and do the thing and fill in the boxes and remember.
I mean, it takes a long time for them to be written, and a lot of the time is not actually writing the requirements, right? It's just
it's getting like the decimal dot notation nesting in the.
Well, it's not even clear if anyone ever reads them, right?
No, I'll tell you, I have definitely earlier stages of my career, like type hierarchy in Microsoft Word and getting the outline.
Oh, hell
just
yeah.
right.
That's the work. That's God's work right there.
Part of me, that's the most therapeutic thing you can do.
Funny story. When I was in law school, we were studying for the bar exam, and you buy these packets of like study materials. They sell them to you. It's a whole thing. But I wanted to create my own documentation, and I just was bored with the law. And so I spent so much time creating Word macros.
This is exactly
my
what
study mates were like, "What are you doing, dude? This has got nothing to do with anything."
The funny thing is, like, the true engineer mindset is like, I will configure everything until I no longer have to do any work.
Yeah.
And the amount of effort that goes into being that lazy is how we have a computing industry.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to make people fast.
Yes, faster. Just get rid of all the bullshit work, right? Like,
low value.
There is a
monotonous
level of engagement, and the less of this you have to do over on this side of the line, the more you get to do on like actual interesting work.
I want to look out into the future for a second, but just to put a pin in this, is this out yet on Shortcut?
No, it's not, and it's going to be.
Is there a name for it so people can look out for it?
It's called Korey with a K.
Korey.
Korey.
Korey?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. I put a list of 800,000 first names into Namecheap, and that one was available for $80, and it sounded pretty well. But I think it is working very well. And I'll say one more thing: we've been using some of these agents internally, and they have human names, right? Like they've been anthropomorphized into like part of the team, and that's helpful. But also, one of them is called Devin. We have someone on our team named Devin. Mm-hmm. And people get confused about which Devin you're talking to because it's in your Slack channel. So now we have Korey, but we also have Korey with a K because there aren't a lot of Koreys with a K that we've found.
Yeah, that's good.
And you say, send that to Korey with a K, not Korey, the guy over here who's on the marketing team or whatever. So
Rich has actually been a chatbot for over 7 years now, and we just kind of so now.
When can people expect this to come out?
We want to push it out to people in the next couple months. So at least beta, if you're a Shortcut user, you should have some access to it at some point soon.
So I think there's a thing you have context on that I would really like to kind of close this out with. I want you to riff on it for a minute. So you're talking about two things here. One is you're building tools for groups of people to work with AI technologies in order to accelerate, break product management and engineering tasks down into smaller components so that lots of people can interact with those tickets as a result, right? And that's Korey. Mm-hmm. And then B, you are managing as CEO. Are you the CTO too, or is there a CTO?
We have a head of engineering. So,
okay, so there's a head of engineering. So but it's not a huge org. Like there's a couple layers, and you're managing and getting a lot of engineers and product people and designers to work together to use these tools and collaborate with them as they're building your own product. Like they have to call APIs and they're probably using some AI coding tools as well. I just kind of want you to talk, because very few people actually have this experience of, most AI is experienced as an individual. It will make you super powerful.
Yeah, it's my assistant.
Sit down with Claude and here we go. What changes when lots of people are involved in using these tools at once and communicating them to each other and building culture around them?
I think one thing we see is back to the junior engineering thing. If people try to just throw it to the AI and then pass it off as their own work, or, hey, I wrote this thing up and it's a bunch of bullet points and it sounds suspiciously like an AI wrote this. It's like, like what?
The sentences are always the exact same length.
Yeah. I think we're in a place sort of on the curve, right? Where if you just put AI generated documentation or you haven't done the work to say, is this right? Just put it in front of people. You've lost a bunch of credibility already, right? Like we've had people internally, externally who say, hey, here's a thing. Like here's all the feedback. It's summarized, and it's like what? Like you didn't do anything. You just sent that through the thing.
I mean, the name of the product is Shortcut. but no,
just looping around the end here. Yeah.
I think this is real. It actually doesn't. There's a thing about work. Like work is human effort that when I perceive it, we just had a conversation about marketing, and I said words that I think 20 years ago I would have can't believe I said, which is I just really need a slick, well put together deck to tell me this story, because then I can use that to go tell other people the story. And so I need some structure. I need the labor and the sort of the design work inside of this world in order to be able to do my job. And I think a lot of times people are like, well, this looks kind of like that, so throw it over the wall and see what happens. And we can tell.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think there's a piece here too, which is a skill set collapse, right? Because if you are a product manager and you know how to write up, hey, this is what we should build. And then there's a piece where you're saying, okay, break that down into tasks. Those used to just be build the back end, build the front end.
Sure.
Now you need to know enough to say, what does that mean? How do those pieces look? What do the pieces come together? Which implies some engineering skill. And then you have to look at that as with an engineering brain, computer software engineering brain, and say, okay, this makes sense. Let's give it to the agents. They go off, spin their wheels for a while. Some of them come back and say, hey, I've finished it. It's done. Here you go. Mm-hmm. Then you got to be able to look at that code and say, okay, does that make sense? Does it actually do what we wanted it to do? Did it break 5 other things over here? I think the engineering skill set bar is going to go up. I think, a piece of it is design, right? Like,
that's interesting.
What is that? How does that start to play out, right? So where do you insert people into the equation before you hand it off to the agents? And how do you check the work to say this actually worked the way we want it to?
Interesting. So you think people need more skills to work with these tools?
I said this 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, but Kurt's our guest.
I don't think I listened. Did I listen to that episode? Well, I mean, it's there's what's the word? Generalist, but I don't think it's really generalist. It's more specific.
Here's what because I've been noticing this.
I think this is a fascinating plot twist in all of it.
Here is my optimistic case for this technology, because the pessimistic case is pretty much a given, which is you just won't need as many engineers, and we're gonna have to figure that out as it comes. But the code will do a lot of it, or the AI is going to do all the coding, and there we go. There are cases where that may be true, and I think, but what I'm seeing more and more of is everybody's getting all the software they need. If they're kind of already a pretty good architect style thinker, they can have all the software they want. And suddenly it turns out that you've wanted software that you never would have bothered with 10 years ago because it was really hard to build. But you can just go ahead and have it. Now you have all that software. You're going to need to manage the software. You might want to share it. You might want to show people how to use it. generating all kinds of interesting opportunities and things going on. I actually think that there's a new set of skills, but that we might be entering this enormous software glut where suddenly everybody can have all their reports and all their tools and that one little clicker game they always wanted to make and the database access thing that they wanted to experiment with. They're going to have all that because this will accelerate them. But at no point do they get to escape from full knowledge of what they're building.
Well, I want to close it with a question that pushes back against that very last statement. Do you think the day will come where you will generate this nicely organized set of tickets that in aggregate represent some business app that somebody's building, and then that set of tickets will be handed back into the machine and it will produce the app? Is that day coming, Kurt?
Well...
Yeah, because the
depends
platform
on what that means. I mean, so here's something we've noticed, and I'll ask you guys this, which is we have a bunch of agents we're playing with, right? Some of them are writing code. Ours is writing tickets. And if you are writing tickets and breaking it down and reading them, you can get to a 90% right case, and it's super valuable, right? Like,
Sure.
It's like, this is great. Like, I just saved 4 hours. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to go drink a beer, whatever it is, right? Like, you've just saved a ton of time. If you hand that off to, let's see, we were using an agent that looked at your financial data, right? And said, this is how much AR you added this week, this sort of thing. And coding agents are similar, but the financial agent is a good example. If that gets something wrong one time, you're like, fuck this thing. Like, because you never trust it again, right? Like, so we're in a space where you get to the 90%, you've saved a bunch of time. Let's do the work. Let's write this code that implements this thing. I got it all wrong. I'm going to just try the next agent, or I'm going to go somewhere else. And like, it just doesn't take a lot when you're that binary true false. To like,
and you just
go,
lose all trust.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
See, what I've noticed with programming with this stuff is that the impulse to laziness is unbelievably powerful because you fix it and it kind of fixes it and so on. But I actually find that when I'm really focused and leaned in and getting very good results, like I've built a prompt toolkit that'll get me to a pretty good API from a relatively complex schema in about a half hour. But I got to be on for that half hour. I can't actually turn away. And I got to really kind of look at the code. I don't have to look at every single line, but I got to be focused. And if I'm focused, I can get the result I want. If I just keep slopping it together, it breaks real fast. And
it gets worse and worse.
Yeah. It's trajectory, right? Like if you're pointing at the moon and you're off by 2 inches, right? You end up in the sun and you're like, how did I get here? It doesn't matter.
We created an accelerated toolkit for creating technical debt with these technologies.
I think that's the funny double-edged sword here is that used well, definite productivity boost. Used poorly, the technical debt that's going to mount is going to be massive.
It's instant. It's instant technical debt.
The first 4 lines of code are just wrong. Yeah, and it's just building on top of that over and over.
It literally educated itself on mounds and mounds of technical debt.
That's right.
It's actually based on technical debt.
All right, so let me ask you a final question.
I thought I had the final question.
Well, go for it. Mine's very short. So
I already asked my final question.
Okay, so my final question is very simple, which is, as you're growing and hiring, are you looking for people, engineers, product managers, et cetera, who are specifically skilled and focused on these technologies, or does that not really matter yet? We'll bring them in as they come.
We're not. We actually, my entire team was pulled internally. Some of them have worked. One of them has worked for me for 10 years now. And we worked together at our last company. And I think the tool set is, do we think about how this is going to work with users? How do we build out? We've been saying product engineer and come up for a while now. But, is this going to work for users? Is it going to get me where I need to go? And there is a big piece of like, I'm a senior engineer and I can see the technical debt coming from a mile away. And like, I'm going to back out. I'm going to back the truck up before we go down that road, because what I don't want is a junior engineer working with a junior engineer. And then you've got, just a pile of stuff over here that you got to completely redo. So we have been, I don't think the technology itself is that complex, right? Like, you got an LM, you're writing some prompts, like that sort of thing. Like, if I was building foundational models, I might be hiring for something else. But we just want to build great software that people can use and move fast with. And for me, that's, do you think about your users? How do you define success as the users are saving time, they're moving faster, and you can figure out the model stuff behind that. It's not any different than stuff I've seen over the years.
Do you feel that your customers are around the same place, or are they like, you're seeing a big swath of the coding world? Are they leaning into this more or less around where you are?
We don't have a ton of visibility into that, right? Like we
That's
see
as it should be.
Yeah. There's the rules and laws and internal security things, but I think people are really still figuring it out, right? They're still saying, what's going to happen if I turn on Copilot? Like what, like how does this work? Like, and half the team uses Copilot and half of it doesn't. What does that mean for me?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it means
it's a little wild
let's see
west
what
right
happens.
now.
Yeah. I think it's so early. Yeah.
It's the classic internet quandary where everyone is telling you that you're 10 years late to the 2-year-old technology. And it's actually extremely early days, and you should approach tentatively and figure it out as you go. So, Kurt, thank you for coming on. This was
great.
A wonderful conversation.
Look out for Korey.com with a K.
Korey.ai.
Sorry. Korey.ai.
Yeah, the team's going to be mad at me. I don't know what happens if you go to that domain right now. Probably.
Yeah, don't go there yet.
Yeah. I'll figure it out.
In a couple months.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Kurt.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome.
All right, Rich. Kurt's seen a lot of code.
It's a recurring theme. The guests we've had on are figuring it out. They're kind of like anthropologists.
Well, this is what I like about our podcast and why it's so special and wonderful.
Right, we figured it out already.
Yeah. It's that unlike everyone else in this misbegotten industry, we're willing to say nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah. No, my favorite is 120K ARR in 30 days because of AI.
Yeah,
I made a Chrome add-on.
Once I left Twitter, I stopped seeing those. They just don't happen. Well, no, LinkedIn a little bit.
No, I see it on LinkedIn, yeah. Anyway,
if you need us, hello@aboard.com.
Hello@aboard.com.
And really, that's about it. Lots of big news coming. Similar to Kurt, we're getting our stuff together, and we're excited to share it with the world.
Have a lovely week.
Bye.